It's very wonderful to see mountain and to want to climb it and put your flag on top of it. It's wonderful to want to create your own mountain so that you can climb it and put your flag on top of it. But it is also wonderful to know why you are doing that, why you are compelled to climb mountain in first place. And you might discover that everyone will love mountain, but you actually love the sea and perhaps swimming is what you really should be doing. And if you're calling a mountain, then by all means to climb it. And but if you have questions about the sea, you might as well run the experiment and see what happens. Climbing to involve, and if you're not able to think incremental change that build up over time to create a large change, and you are probably dead. And that shouldn't really be a goal of anyone. Like I think and say what are my priorities, and then I move toward that. And sometimes honestly by prioritize or to see how many back-to-back exposures of whatever I'm watching on Netflix I can watch for that comfort Sunday that Sunday, you know, for in order to my best self out in the world Monday morning. And sometimes as you know you have much of my to-do list can I control before lunch, and so I tell myself that this is to do list of the thing that's not on it also. Things just compared to the things that I have already done, I have already survived or already accomplished. That is almost legible that they think they are on my to-do list. Like they are have influence working. Man, so if you can get to the point where you can say, well, I have already pushed towards something incredible, or I have already done something that I didn't think that I was able to do, didn't have the skill to do, didn't have the confidence to even try, but someone invest and I was forced to. I have already done this thing and they made it in different contests. Maybe this in a personal contest and not a career contest in my case or in the trailer and not in the side world. But I have already is bro concept is already this, so what reason do I have to believe that it is not working to work again? So I'm not thinking about it at least and try novel new thing because you do get a face respond to new things because our brand trying to protect us from maybe this was that we don't know anything about when you're realizing that in fact it's a familiar task that clock it in a new environment. And so I think that's there a lot of be to say for looking back at our success and not just assuring them but really recognize that the new challenge is fact that our dragon we have already stand. Are a lot of already early completion that I have made were because I didn't realize that they are an option, and these are actually a type of method for teaching. I also use to play the violin, and I was taught with the Suzuki method. And if you look at the Suzuki method, you have all these little for our 5 6 years old that are playing violin concert that you are far beyond that you still think somebody up that they should be able to do, and it's because nobody told them that they shouldn't be able to do it, and that's what they well, basically my reality. As was told, well, you are 11, you're gonna start going to cholesterol. I went to the examination, was supposed to get good grades every time this were gone, but in front of me, I didn't realize you could not acknowledge it, so I just did. We will never really know who we would have been if we had made like one different decision, my way in our childhood, but because of the way the brain developed and is more emotionally susceptible to the experience that we have already early on in life and we are later in life, we'll have to do certain expectation that one is a contributing member of the community of humanity, and that can be accomplished in many different ways. I think if I had I even had a group of young people that I was responsible for. I would try and listen more than maybe my parents did to what each of them want. I certainly wouldn't try and mentor all of them because you can't do that, right? But them in situation where they can find people to emulate and to look up to and to ask the right question of because the worst thing in the world is to have an excellent mind or to have a question and to know the right people have the vacancy results to get them answer. So the young folk brain is still plastic, it's still developing and is more strandable to information is certain. Whereas another is I use stories, I would use imaginative language and humor, but there's a certain amount of fiction. What happened there's last few years in the early 20s we did this day. Full of development of the brain photo contest with the sort of responsible both for those our ability to think logically and to predict outcome and also maybe a little for us to reject the negative outcome as well, right? So optimism follow victim to reality burn as lazy because mother nature is lazy. There has to be a justifiable reason for our energy output, because they are using resources that are important for our survival. So if our brains are lazy and they follow the process that are easiest for them to follow. It have you have consistently trained your brain and to like reframing. That's the first step. The ultimate step outcome is the easier to learn. One thing about is how to work every hard and you think about the negative one unless it's feeling turned in some way it will go is good enough because it prediction machine as I predict that is probably what's going to happen and will be a positive outcome. There might be other factors, but initially that I would be spending thinking about those factors that doesn't seem in life would necessary for the importance of decision so good enough. Our press really don't like to go about. They get very unhappy if they understand something and then they can that can go to solving the problem in many different ways. Not just how can I solve the problem sometimes, but how can I ensure that this is not going to be a problem in the long run. Emotions were not useful, or this actively are disrupting. This is I had to build my life entire logically. Now that's obviously like we humans so impossible. We make emotional decisions our time, but are you for developing friend think that is there's something that can be done and that they can always do the thing right and the rest thing is logical things and then as I start to learn about the brand and as I start to learn about myself I realized that I didn't have a lot of experience in seeing what would happen. I just let them come as more people experience with this in adolescence, but they don't know this embarrassing. You just see this emotion. They just think how am I and this who I am. Right? They don't think about this in an abstract way. I went to New York and trained at the Auburn Elite School, which is a very well-known school of modern day say in Manhattan, and I was gonna be a dancer, but then was sort of cracked in. The first time a little bit, I wasn't with Sweden, and when you're a dancer, especially when you're a younger dancer, you're just as if you don't have a mind of your own, and you are simply a body and a just director and the choreographer or the teaching is giving you the input, and you have to give it back. And for someone that already have a pilot's degrees in biochemistry, wasn't really saving. Especially when they would make comment about biochemistry, they like don't eat too much to care other things because then you fall asleep because childhood fun. I would be like to how many to have to eat, but I disagree. All I have for a woman is that I stop worrying about whether or they not fitting in and whether or not they are supposed to be emulating the men are making upon being female, and then they can start just taking things, taking their power, taking their place at the table and asking permission for it, and we have all of this transplanting women that have to do that. They have had to take in so many class linear lesson. I hope this isn't offensive. Like no stamina in the picture, and normally they would put just enough women into the pipeline, and the fact that we quickly won't be a problem. We'll eventually get enough of them to the tenure track position, and that will start to be a positive feedback loop. And I think that for the massive, it can be very difficult to be at your best when you're constantly looking out over your shoulder and wondering if being you is enough.